200 years of civil engineering. Is it working? In the words of a former Chinese premier, it's much too early to say. So in here, it'll come up soon. Yes, Jean, I too got my certificate for 50 years in the Institution of Civil Engineers. And I should have taken a photograph just this year, because there's two photographs, roughly 50 years apart. That's my career, 50 years apart, which somebody helpfully pointed out to me last night is 1/4 of the length of the whole of the Institution of Civil Engineers. That's what a few of us have got. What I want to do now, I'm drawing on a couple of the comments I heard earlier on. I think it was David Gann who said, if we don't do it, somebody else is going to do it instead, the other industries that are coming up. And John Kyung Busy said how our industry is so conservative. So I wanted to do a bit of a wake-up call. I'll have to wander over here. On the bottom, and the whole of this presentation, I'm afraid, is about UK. So you want to think, is it different here? And I think there are some indications it is. But these are on the bottom. This was a piece of work done by Anne Dowling from the Royal Academy of Engineering, which was looking at the interactions between university research programs and industry. And therefore, this was the top 40 companies. And way over on the left-hand side is GlaxoSmithKline. Then you've got Rolls-Royce engineering, not civil. You've got to go nowhere on there is construction and civil engineering, except one. This is the only advert, by the way, except one company, which you'll find in there is Arup. There is no other. There is nobody else, and we're way down there. I mean, you know, even with the little stuff down here, that's where Arup is. So all other industries and all other sectors are way up on the left-hand side, and you have to go a long way down before you find anything else. I'm going to ram this home. I'm sorry about this. So this was a piece of work done which is looking at over time, so this is different years across the top, over time, different industries, different sectors, and how much they were involved in UK R&D. And it's a bit like the English or the British Premiership League. There's the top 4, and they dodge around backwards and forwards, pharmaceuticals, motor vehicles, computer programming, and aerospace. They take the top, and then down below that, there's all other ones that go up and down according to spend in each year. Construction, civil engineering, nowhere. And then a bit of work that I've just done, which is is a bit flawed. This is actually trying to compare R&D spend with turnover in the sector. And you might actually question pharmaceuticals. Quite honestly, if I'd got shares in pharmaceuticals, I'd be a bit worried, because look how much pharmaceuticals is spending, a bit of an outlier, way up in R&D compared with its total turnover. But on the left-hand side, the dotted line, that's the construction industry in the United Kingdom. Okay, it is bigger than aerospace, energy, automotives added together. So it is a huge industry, but it's a pathetically small spend on research and R&D. So what do we think about that? And that's where I want to... Actually, I can put this down. I don't think I need to go rushing around with that anymore. So how can we transform and protect our lives with that sort of commitment to research and development, really a commitment to the future, I guess, where we're going. And so there's a nice quote from another UK report. Construction contracting registered 22 million of R&D expenditure in 2011, one of the lowest lectures of all sectors, and it's been declining. And that's compared with the average of R&D expenditure, which has grown 35% in that period of 13 years. But what we do is expensive. It's not trivial, is it? What we do is big. I was involved in HS1. That was £6 billion. That's 63 billion Hong Kong dollars. The London Olympics was 9 billion. Crossrail that I'm involved in is 14 billion. And now looking to the future, Crossrail 2 is slated at 28 billion and HS2 at 55 billion. Can you see a trend? Okay, some of these projects might be bigger, but there's nothing in there to suggest that things are getting cheaper or more efficient in that lot. Everything is getting more expensive, not less. So what are the consequences of this hugely expensive pursuit that we're involved in, that we're all involved in? What are the consequences of that? I'd say one of the consequences is that people try and avoid it at all costs. Let's see if we can just put off doing this stuff. People try to work round us, and therefore you heard it earlier, trying to see whether or not different technologies can take the place of building that metro, or building that airport, or building that nuclear power station, or whatever it might be. So investment is avoided. Much needed projects are delayed by decades. What investment is committed is too little, too late. Some investment is made in transport systems. In other words, infrastructure is 80% construction. 20% is in the systems. The systems are indeed going through technological revolutions. But I maintain that the stuff that we do, the civil engineering end, has yet to have its technological revolution. Construction, I don't think, has had. Now, I have to step back here because I can see there's people sort of throwing sort of daggers this way. We've been hearing today of some of the stunning revolutions and technology changes that are happening. My point is, we've only just started. There's a long way to go. The photograph I showed at the beginning was of a construction site 50 years ago and now. And roughly you can't see that much difference in muck shift and concrete pouring and reinforcement and so on. But look at what's happened in other industries. And by the way, all these other industries are smaller than construction. Aerospace, actually huge changes. Fly-by-wire, jet technology, composite materials, pharmaceuticals, stem cell research, automotive industries, computer management and fuel and emissions efficiency, absolutely massive. Oil and gas, offshore exploration, extraction, and now fracking. Even things like humdrum industry like clothing and retail. There's huge changes have happened in that. Efficiencies have been brought to bear in it all. So that's trying to put the downside in it all. And if you looked at those graphs that I put earlier on, they're fact. The rest of what I'm going to say is more my feelings about this, or my thoughts about this. That earlier on was about how little in our industry we put into R&D and whether that gets translated into innovation. I am privileged, I have been privileged to be involved in two different programs or initiatives that have looked at this. One, which was 8 years ago now, was for the UK Treasury, which was basically asking the question, why does it cost so much? And we looked into this, and we came up with these 5 broad headings, which were not the ones I thought from the beginning. I thought it was all going to be, why don't we put more money into research and R&D and innovation in our industry? This actually came out with far more fundamental issues, which was to do with how we commission infrastructure and the construction industry. One was having a clear pipeline. Governments, the British government now, and governments generally, are far better at letting us see what's coming. So now the UK government has a pipeline that it publishes that looks, I wanted it to be 10 years ahead, it looks 5 years ahead, what is going to be coming through. And you don't realise the difficulty of going around the different ministries and asking them to tell us what they think they're going to be doing over the next 5 years. They didn't really want to say that. You know, if people started people started saying what they were going to do, people would take them for their word. So we got this published. Secondly, being clear about governance, because sometimes we get too complex for our own good. Governance is saying very clearly who is the client who wants it, who is going to be the delivery agency for this, and where's the money coming from. Be very clear about those three parts. I think at the beginning of the Olympics, I've forgotten now, it's between 9 and 12 agencies were involved in all the thing I've just told you. Whereas now, we're much clearer on how to deliver and how the governance should be. Thirdly, discipline. And you might actually laugh about this one. It was lots of stuff in there that you might think is obvious. One of them I remember very clearly looking at a minister and telling him this. Let's make sure we design it before we build it. You mean? Yes. Sometimes we start building it when we haven't actually got the system sorted out, we haven't actually worked out where the M&E is going, and so on. Make sure you've got a lot more of that done before you start. And the word smart is being used a lot, smart procurement, I perhaps might say clever, being clear about risks in procurement. And if you do those four things, then we maintained the industry will respond with training, research and innovation. It won't respond with training, research and innovation when it actually doesn't know. Crossrail was not fully funded until about 3 months before we started. Now what contractors and suppliers would seriously put their best people from around the world, because that's the stuff we're talking about, when you don't even know if it's going to be funded. And the second thing I've been privileged to be part of is Crossrail, but I was asked when I joined the board whether I'd be the innovation champion for the board, and we set up something called the Crossrail Innovation Forum, and it went through working out what were the conditions for innovation on a £15 billion project such as Crossrail. The client and the Tier 1 contractors were committed. Sounds obvious, but it's quite often not the case. I certainly know from previous things that often clients are risk-averse and conservative and say, actually, I want to come second on any technology. I want somebody else to have done it first, not me. So actually having Andrew Wolstenholme, the chief executive, saying, we've got an innovation program, that's important. Engages people across the organization, empowers people, gives people permission to innovate, encourages collaboration, and puts skin in the game, puts money. There was matching funds. You come up with innovative ideas, we'll put matching funds with it on one condition, and that is that whatever it comes, as long as it works, is then available across the whole program. And so we had this sharing program that was called Pinched with Pride. We showed it what it might be. That resulted in 400 ideas, 1,000 ideas, somebody said, and so on. You can see it all. 300% return on the investment that we put into it all. But why does this need kickstarting? Why? I mean, any other industry, you would have thought this would just go like a dream. Innovation, all these other industries. Why is it not the case here? Now, this is where I'm really pushing this out quite a lot. Because I don't know is the answer. I think it's something to do with this, is that the largest construction companies are small compared with the largest energy companies, pharmaceutical companies, automotive companies. They can afford, it costs about between 20 and 30 million pounds to come up with a new model of a car that could actually collapse, might not go. So the industry is not big enough. And therefore, whereas in other industries there are mega projects and there are mega corporations that match them. Whereas the construction sector has got projects that are comparable in size, but the companies that are delivering it are relatively modest. So what's the solution? Well, in anywhere else, the markets demand innovation. Actually, you may have noticed about a year or two ago, Rolls-Royce share price suffered a little bit because actually its R&D program was not actually coming through with stuff. Actually, they want that to work. You can see in other industries, pharmaceuticals live and die by a research program. How can we make that into ours? Now, I think it is because the market for the stuff that we do ultimately is the public sector or the regulated private sector. And they, on behalf of the nation, on behalf of the citizens, are risk averse. Actually, it doesn't do us any good to be risk averse. You've heard about this a little bit earlier on. So I think the construction industry needs help. And I think it is, could we please get clients to put innovation at the heart of procurement? In other words, as well as talking about quality, as well as talking about price, can we actually see? Now, I'm also involved in a transport systems research program, not to do with construction, to do with the systems there. And we have put up funding for rail operators to come up with innovation programs that will max fund. But that's in that industry. I want us to see whether we can put that into this industry, where innovation is as much a deciding factor on appointment of suppliers and contractors as are the other factors. So what is it all about? Self-building, well, we talked about this. We know all these things here: condition-aware infrastructure, total instrument. I think there's more to it than this. I saw that in the Royal Academy of Engineering, there is a lady here who is busy doing bacteria and microbiotics that is solidifying soft soil. She can turn loose soil into rock. What do you think about that? So it isn't just about instrumentation. It isn't just about data. It's all about artificial intelligence. It's all about materials technology. Some of it isn't new. Composite materials have been around for ages in other industries, hardly affected what we're doing. So, the conditions for industry transformation: highly experienced client commissioners for smarter procurement and smarter risk allocation to incentivize innovation. Please, can we put innovation at the heart of procurement? Thank you.